Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we're about to start the show in your absolute favorite way, with me telling you a story that ends with the punchline of me being a complete idiot. So, Tony,
yes, please go.
Yes. I figured you would be okay with a little diversion to start the show. So, Tony, you know those websites where it's like misheard lyrics, and it's like, haha, I can't believe this stupid person thought that in Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix is saying, excuse me while I kiss this guy instead of kiss the sky. And it's like, haha, what kind of stupid idiot could possibly have confused those two? Who could possibly think that that was what he was trying to say? Idiots. Dumb, stupid idiots. So there was a song from the 90s that was like one of those songs you would like hear while you were out at the outer inn every once in a while. Like, it wasn't like a huge mega hit, but it was one of those songs that was kind of like in rotation. You'd kind of hear it while you were out. It was like, oh, that's kind of catchy, but wasn't so catchy that you ever felt compelled to like figure out who sung it or what the song was. And, you know, Shazam wasn't a thing on your phone back then. So it was like, well, I guess I hope I order the right CDs from Columbia House this time. And I just happened to stumble upon this song because it wasn't that easy to figure it out back then. So, and then you just sort of forgot about it. And like earlier this week, I heard it in it was like a CVS or something, or someone was sitting at a stoplight next to me. It was like a really random spot. And then I kind of got it in my head again. And I'm like, I wonder who sings that. Like, I've never bothered to look this up. And in my head, all these years, the lyrics have been, I'm automatic, something, baby, something, whatever. So I'm like, all right, I Google, I'm automatic song. And a bunch of stuff pops up. Tony, do you know what the song is? Tony, the song is I'm Not an Addict. And it is by a band called K's Choice, I think. And like, if you look it up, you'll hear it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that song. Which is basically what it has been to me for 20 years. But I have always thought the chorus was I'm automatic. Now, in my defense, the band is Belgian, so they don't actually pronounce the T in addict, and they kind of blur the words together a little bit. So as usual, Tony, this is not actually my fault. This is the fault of the Belgians, as I've said so many times on this podcast. But yes, it was. I had a tremendous revelation about a song I've thought about 5 times in the last 30 years, but. That was my most exciting thing that happened to me all week. Tony, how about you? What have the Belgians done to you this week?
Well, we'll get there. No, I don't know that song, and I'll have to listen to it too, then see if I know it. It is funny that they don't pronounce the T at the end. So, what are they singing? Like, I'm an addict? Like, are some people out there thinking, Google, who sings I'm an addict?
It's something about the way they say "naden" sounds like "oughta." I don't know. And it's one of those things where if you are listening and you in your head are saying this is what they're saying, you'll hear automatic or you'll hear not an addict. It's like you can trick your brain. You can trick your brain into thinking either one. Apparently,
yeah. Not sort of related to that in terms of misknowing. I was listening to Sirius XM this morning, and it was Danny Cannell and Dusty Dvorak, and they were talking about Garth Brooks. And Dusty was like, "Do you know Garth Brooks' real name?" And Danny Cannell's like, "What?
Garth Brooks?
You mean Chris Gaines?" And Dusty Dvorak is like, "Yeah, that's his real name." And then and Danny had to explain to the young man, "No, that's not actually his real name. That was a stunt. That was a branch off that he tried to do in relation to a movie that never got made." But no, it's funny to me that there's somebody out there, and there's probably more people out there that think like that's Garth Brooks' real name, and that's where he started. And then it's like, but after that, like, you don't get friends in low places and all of this other stuff. That all came before. Like, do you not know how time works? Have you looked? Have you checked all of the hits since the Chris Gaines? And so I thought that was funny as well.
I think the most remarkable part of that story to me is that Danny Cannell was right about something. Anyway, on with the show, Tony. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about quite a bit of stuff. First, we've got Ohio State landed a commitment from Austin Siereveld. believe the number 20 offensive lineman in the nation, 4-star kid out of Lakota East High School, and gives Ohio State their third offensive lineman in this class. Tom, I went to the commitment ceremony yesterday. I'll say that it's a pretty nice area. I'm gonna say that that nice high school looks relatively new. They've got a whole huge campus type of deal going on, and so I went there, and you never know what you're gonna walk into when you're attending a high school ceremony. And this one was in the gym, and the people were set up in the stands, and then on the other side of the high school gym where the other stands are, all of those stands were pushed back, and you had a table where the Sierevelds were going to be sitting. And I'm guessing that's got to be 100 feet away, right? So everybody's in the stands watching, and then these are on TV as well. Not TV, they're streamed via like CBSSports.com, and they have their commitment things that they do with the number of guys. This, I think Mark Fletcher may have done one via CBS a while ago. They do these like every now and again. But so you're sitting there watching, and you don't know anything that is being said because he's talking into a microphone that is going to the computer, and obviously you can't hear anything being said. So I am planted very far away trying to stream via YouTube on my phone, and you can only zoom in so much on YouTube before it gets really grainy, and it was getting grainy, so I had to zoom back out a little bit. And I'm just trying to give the people something to watch and experience it and see it. And of course, Wi-Fi is cutting out as well, Tom. This is just a complete nightmare. And you can't hear anything like he's talking, you can't hear anything. And then I start to hear something in the nature of like, I'll be spending the next however many, amount of time. And then he stands up and reveals his Ohio State shirt, and everybody comes out of the stands and they're all happy. And then I end the stream, and it's like, I know, Tom, I know it was not good. There were a couple people who moved like TV. You know how TV is. TV doesn't care about blocking views or anything like that. They're right up there at the table, and I didn't want to do that. There's family, there's friends in the stands. Like I'm not trying to be in the way, and so I'm trying to stay back a little bit. But it was not a good stream. I know that. And then I get a screenshot sent to me from Bucknuts Forum where they're saying, "Oh, how embarrassing for Buckeye Scoop that this is the stream." And I even apologized in the group text beforehand, saying, "Hey, this is not going to go well, just so you know." And like, I knew the situation was not going to be good. And so, Tom, I'm going to apologize to you. If I have embarrassed you for that or anything else, I would like to publicly apologize right now.
Tony, on the scale of things you've embarrassed me with over the years, this is so far down the list. I can assure you, don't worry about this one. This is not even close to the top of the list. So you're totally fine. This is one of these times when I think, Kevin Noon, obviously on the Southern Swing with Mark Givler right now. I was unavailable with the day job stuff on Wednesday. So, neither of us were available. We are both, trained television professionals. Tony, I think the lesson here is that broadcast is a lot like fireworks. It's best left to the professionals so that you don't blow yourself up. And, I appreciate the effort. I appreciate you trying. And you ended up, you got to interview him. You got good content out of it. It wasn't like it was a totally wasted trip. But yes, it is not as easy as it looks. Kevin and I are used to working without a net and dealing with all of the various nonsense that will pop up, in all of the wonderful live venues that we get to work in, and the closet that they have us in at Northwestern, and the closet that they have us in at Penn State, and all the wonderful live venues. But yes, it is not as easy as we make it look. So yes, it's okay. We understand.
Speaking of curveballs, Tom, so I left around lunchtime, and I was thinking, well, I'll just grab some lunch on the road. What you don't want to do is you don't want to grab something that could be messy. Like, you don't want to get a burger and have ketchup fall down or something like that. So immediately, initially in my head, I'm thinking, chicken tenders from somewhere. that's easy. Chicken tenders and fries.
So sorry, let's just point out for a moment how on brand this whole thing is. Your concern is spilling ketchup all over yourself, so instead we're gonna get the chicken tenders. Okay, just wanted to. I mean, no. Sometimes people are new to podcasts. I just want to make sure we're sort of making sure everyone's on the same page with the wonderful subtext of the story. Go ahead. So you were ordering off the children's menu. Go on.
I'm ordering off of the don't get any on you menu. Unfortunately, Tom, I stopped at a I don't know what town it was, but they had a Popeyes.
Mm.
So I went in. It was a travel center with a Popeyes, which makes it a little bit more expensive. However, you're going to get the order right because you see them put it together. So there's a positive there. So I just get like a 3-piece and fries. And so then I get back in the car and I get back on the highway and I grab one of the tenders and I take a bite and just this pocket of grease just like drops down my shirt. And it was delicious for one, but you know what? It just goes to prove that don't, like when you try to, not be messy, Popeyes is going to get you anyway.
If you have not learned that Popeyes is an agent of chaos, and you're like, no, I can control this. I will watch them, so I will get the right order, and that's the only thing that ever goes wrong at Popeyes. Like, don't take this as a negative about Popeyes. Popeyes is delicious performance art 100% of the time, and it's like, well, if you're going to control that piece, and I'm going to make sure they put the right thing in the bag, like that's fine. Like, it's going to get you some other way. So just accept it and move on. You could put 1,000 napkins down the front of your shirt and like somehow it's going to end up with you getting a flat tire. It's like, how could that possibly? It doesn't matter. That is what Popeyes is. Just, you have to accept it. You have to be willing to accept that trade-off of the absolute chaos and mayhem and completely wrong orders in exchange for, whatever you get is going to be good. Even if it's not what you ordered, it's going to be good. So that's just how Popeyes works. I'm surprised you haven't figured that out yet.
Well, and the irony is I've never gotten any of the chicken sandwiches on me, like I've been able to contain myself and control everything there. Tom, so this is the first time, as long as everybody stays committed, it'll be the first time since 2009. This is something that we touched on a little bit in the last show. First time since 2009 that Ohio State will have signed the top 3 offensive linemen in Ohio. That 2009 class was pretty darn good. It was Marcus Hall, Jack Mewhort, and Corey Lindsley. 2 guys with the NFL careers. 1 guy still going. Marcus Hall, very good at Ohio State when he got into the starting lineup. And if these guys can be anything like that, Luke Montgomery, Josh Padilla, and now Austin Siereveld, if they can be anything like that, that would be huge. And as you're looking down this list, because I put the list together and it goes all the way to 2002, and 2009 is the only one where the Buckeyes landed all 3 guys in state. And even just in the last few years, like I think it's the last 3 or 4 classes, Ohio State has landed 6 of the top 3. Clemson has landed 3 of the top 3, and over that time, in like last 4 or 5 years, Notre Dame is maybe a couple behind Ohio State as well. So I guess it's good to see that there's enough talent in Ohio to warrant the offers, first of all, and then you see Justin Fry come in and lock some guys down.
Yeah, there has been, first of all, this is, you go through the list and it's interesting how many years you're looking at, and it's like, I don't remember some of these guys. And, even guys who ended up somewhere else notable, it's still like, a lot of guys who didn't pan out. And, there are going to be years when there is 1 or 0 Ohio State caliber offensive linemen in state, and that's fine. It's going to fluctuate per year. But, to have 3 Ohio State caliber offensive linemen and land all 3 of them, I mean, that's really impressive. And I think, I don't think, Tony, that this is probably a complete coincidence that this is the first Justin Fry class. Greg Stadwara had his positives, but man, oh man, there were a lot of recruiting misses of like 3-foot putts. Like, but you gotta be able to bring in the in-state kids who's, like grew up Ohio State fans who are in-state Ohio State caliber offensive linemen. Like, you got to be able to hit the 3-foot putts. It's great that you can, you get some of the other ones, but offensive line is such a depth position that you've got to have, if you have Ohio State caliber players who are like just on an absolute tee for you, because that's how you putt. There's a lot of golfing analogies here, Tony. That's, I think, my big takeaway. Don't putt off the tee, but if these guys are just on a tee for you, you got to be able to bring them in. And there was enough consistent failure to do that over the last couple of years that, that was unquestionably what led to the change at the offensive line coaching position. Now Ohio State has 3 guys who, all 3 in-state guys, in-state guys who commit early. Those should be people you're not real concerned about losing to a flip. So now you've got 3 guys who, that is the basis of a very solid offensive line class. They're looking for probably 2 more guys. They need some tackles in this class. But now you can kind of focus on just those few guys getting those tackles, whether it's a Chase Basantis or we've talked about a bunch of different guys over the last year, but you can focus on those 4 or 5 kind of top targets. You get 2 of those, man, this is a dynamite offensive line class. But to have those 3 guys locked up already, and Ryan Montgomery could end up playing tackle, or not Luke Montgomery. Sorry, Ryan Montgomery is a quarterback. He's probably not playing tackle, but Luke Montgomery could play, potentially end up at tackle. You have exactly what you would want at this point of the cycle. To now you've got camps, you've got unofficial visits, you've got official visits. Bring those guys in. Really, make sure they know you are our top priority right now, and land a couple of those, and that's a class that carries you for a couple of years.
Yeah, and I tweeted this out on Wednesday. I asked Austin Siereveld, what was it about Justin Fry that made you decide that you can spend 4 or 5 years working with them? And he said he was the only coach that said, I want to coach you. And it's like, that seems pretty, you would think all coaches say this. And it's interesting that in this era of what can you promise players? What can you entice them with? What's the NIL situation look like? What does the, all of these different things that all of these football programs put money into to show players, look at the, we've got a barber shop. We've got a pool tables. We've got the full-time chef. And Justin Fry, obviously this is an Ohio kid. And so Ohio State has a leg up on everybody, but he's just hey, I want to coach you. This is why I see this. I like this, what I can do here. And it's just a very simple thing, but sometimes simple is the most effective. And it goes back to, this is Justin Fry just getting in with these Ohio kids and making inroads. But I wonder if this is, while you're promising and showing all of these things that you can, that players can receive, here's also, this is a coach saying, you know what I want? Enough, Austin, enough about what you want. Let's talk about what I want. And that ends up maybe being part of the difference in landing a player.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, and people want to act like NIL is the only thing that is impacting anything right now. It's well, no. I mean, there's a reason that Alabama and Ohio State are still signing players, that Tennessee's not getting every single player in the universe, even though they're splashing cash around. There are other factors that end up, if you're a program that develops, if you're a program that wins, those things end up, if you're a program that's consistently putting players in the NFL, those are the things that will motivate a lot of people. And some people are just interested in the academic piece. This is not a one size fits all. Everyone wants to act oh, Texas A&M was the number 1 class in the nation this year. Oh my goodness, everything, everything has changed forever and nothing will ever be the same. It's well, all the stuff, the comfort and relationships, all the stuff that the people who know what they're talking about always talk about with this stuff, those things still matter. Here's another example of that. The other thing that's kind of interesting about the offensive line piece of this in particular is you look at some of these past lists, and even the classes where there are 3 guys going to really top level programs, you look at the names and you're who? And, offensive line is such a tricky position to evaluate. So, you're not going to have a real high hit rate there necessarily. If you evaluate exceptionally well, you might hit on 3 of 5 guys. And I'm going to look at the 2014 class in the state of Ohio. Number 1 offensive lineman in the state of Ohio, Kyle Trout, goes to Ohio State. Number 2, Jimmy Byrne to Notre Dame. Number 3, Marcellus Jones to Ohio State. Marcellus Jones, did he have an injury? Or did he just retire? He never played at Ohio State, really. Kyle Trout never played at Ohio State. I looked up Jimmy Byrne from Notre Dame. Jimmy Byrne from Notre Dame, freshman season, one of 4 freshman offensive linemen who spent the team on the scout team and did not see the field. 2015, one of 4 scholarship sophomores who did not see the field. Junior season, did not play in a game. And they don't have a bio for 2017, but the trajectory there is pretty clear. And those are the top 3 offensive linemen in the state of Ohio. Like, sometimes it doesn't pan out, and maybe that's injury, maybe that's development, maybe that's just evaluation on the offensive line is tricky, but sometimes those guys don't pan out. But, that's why you end up taking so many guys. It's like, why are they taking 5 offensive linemen this year after they took 6 a couple of years ago and, 3 or 4 last year? It's just, it is a tough evaluation position, it is a tough development position, and you have to hit on a pretty decent number. You got to land a bunch of really good ones and hit on a pretty high percentage of them in order to have a pretty good and deep offensive line, which is what the ultimate goal is.
Yeah, and the list there's some, even like the 2018, where they miss out on Jackson Carman, who I don't think got as much. Clemson didn't get as much as they thought they were going to get. Darian Kennard goes to Kentucky. He's really, really good as like a mid-round NFL draft pick. And then John Dirksen went to Notre Dame. I looked him up, and he was basically just a special teamer and basically left the team. He was already married and had a family. He's like, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I'm going to go on with my life. And so it did that. And there are some of these years where there's just no offers better than Michigan, frankly, so, but, like 2007, the top guy went to Illinois, and then Boston College and Louisville for the top 3. And, but, it's always a good thing when there are players that can receive really top Power 5 offers. And again, Austin Siereveld was choosing between Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Tom, you mentioned the allure and the lure of NIL. Ohio high schools are in the midst of voting on NIL to allow their high school students to partake. Voting started May 1st, and it goes through like the 15th, and then how that vote goes, and I believe it's school principals voting on it, and unless I read it wrong and it wasn't principal, it was PLE, but basically schools are voting on this. And then if they pass it on the 15th, like if there's enough votes to pass it on the 15th, then it goes into effect on the 16th. And Ohio State would then become the 10th state that allows high school players and student athletes, we'll call them, to collect on NIL. And I'll just run through these lists. They've got Alaska, California, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, and Utah. And I don't know, Tom, if you talked to Marcus Hartman about this for your show, did he have any feeling on, has he talked to anybody on how they think this is going to go? Like, is there a expectation of how this vote is going to go?
I asked him that, and Marcus Hartman is from the Dayton Daily News, and I talked to him because he went to the OHSAA meeting where they had the whole presentation on this, and he talked to a bunch of people who were there. And, he didn't have a real strong, definitely going to pass, definitely not going to pass kind of vibe. I think he felt like the general vibe in the room was, you probably have to do this so that you don't open yourself up to litigation in the future, even, whether or not that litigation is going to be successful or not. Like, you don't want to open yourself up to litigation. The OHSAA has not had a tremendous couple of years financially with the pandemic, as is true of many organizations and folks. But, so they probably don't want to open themselves up to litigation. I think there's a lot of concerns about, unintended consequences of that kind of thing. I personally feel like the risk aversion in these, that's sort of built into these organizations is probably going to tend towards passing it. But, I don't think this is going to be a 92 to 8% kind of vote or anything like that. This may be a very close vote, and if it goes the other way, it wouldn't shock me. But the interesting piece of this is a whole lot of, there's a lot of conversation about this. How many people is this actually going to impact? Because there's all sorts of restrictions on what you can't do. You can't have, you can't do this in your like school uniform. So you can't be like, hi, I'm hotshot quarterback of the, the whatever high school football team, and you're in your jersey and your helmet and you've got your football and all. You can't do that. You've got to, you've got to kind of do it on your name. And how many athletes, like, you're going to probably have the people who maybe want to, sign the quarterback to endorse the local pizza place or whatever. But A, how big is that deal? And B, how many players are really going to have that? I mean, you have, at the college level, there's a lot bigger market. And, how many kids in the state of Ohio are going to get a car or a truck? I mean, it's certainly under 100, I would say, probably in any given year, and probably significantly under 100. So you're looking at, a much smaller impact than you are at the college level. But where you might see a little bit more of an impact is this then opens people up to potentially be able to, capitalize on their name to give lessons, for example. So if you're a star high school tennis player, you can now, start an open business giving tennis lessons. And, I think this is one of those things that probably happens in a lot of places, and you're getting paid. And right now it's, someone slips you $40 to teach their kid how to serve or to hit a golf ball or to pitch a softball or whatever the case may be. Now you can do it a little more openly. So, there will probably be, most of the impact is going to be like that level of stuff. I don't think you're going to have a lot of like LeBron James getting a Humvee when he was in high school. Like, sure, LeBron James could now legally get a Humvee when he's in high school. But how many people are really going to be at the high school level getting that kind of stuff? Probably not too many.
I think I agree. I think it's going to pass because it's eventually going to become, they're eventually going to have to pass it anyway, because if they turn it down this time, they're going to have to do it again at some point anyway. So it's one of these things where it's eventually going to happen. We may as well just get it done now. And like you said, avoid litigation. I think there will be some instances, maybe not in Ohio, but like you could see this when this happens in Texas, and it's not yet in Texas, but the crazy Texas high schools where you lure quarterbacks to come play. And it's like, well, I think we've all seen Friday Night Lights, the TV show. I have not yet watched the movie, but how crazy these things are. You see their stadiums and they look like college stadiums. And I don't think it would be much for somebody to throw a quarterback a truck. And it's like, but we already live in a society and where quarterbacks go places in high school. Like Ohio State quarterback Devin Brown lives and played in Arizona, and then for a senior year goes and lives with a host family and plays football in Utah. Like, this already happens. And IMG, players go to IMG and move away from their families and get enticed by that opportunity. So enticements, inducements, all of that stuff already happens in high school sports. And sure, it's going to happen more, but it's going to be the very tiny percentage. And it's going to be the other percentage that, now I don't have to pay for my hamburgers at the dairy bar because now I have an endorsement deal with them. And it's small level, low level stuff like that you'll get to see, I think. But I mean, that's going to be a lot of paperwork too. Like, there's a lot of kids in Ohio that might sign these really minuscule deals, and you're going to have to monitor it. But I don't really see the harm because the scale is smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, I think, what we talked about in terms of the NIL stuff at the college level, which is if you are an athletic department big enough that you have a lot of student athletes getting a lot of endorsement deals, and you that creates a lot of paperwork for you, then you are probably also the size of athletic department that has the ability to add a couple people to deal with that and scale up. You're not, Ohio State, the number of endorsements that Ohio State has to deal with in terms of NIL stuff is significantly higher than the number of endorsements that, say, Otterbein does. And so, therefore, Ohio State is also, commensurately much more able to add a couple extra staffers or, throw some more resources at, the monitoring and all that kind of stuff that's necessary to keep things, keep things running and keep things, above board with the NCAA. So, how many no disrespect to whoever the Otterbein quarterback is, but I'm going to guess that CJ Stroud is probably a little more in demand than whoever the Otterbein quarterback is this year. So, Ohio State has the people to deal with that, and Otterbein probably doesn't really need to worry about that to much degree.
It was about 49 weeks ago, as I'm looking back on it, that Ohio State Senator Niraj Antani introduced the name, image, and likeness. And I was at the, on campus as he was discussing this and taking questions. And somebody asked him, like, well, how do you expect Division II to pay for all of this monitoring and stuff? And that's where he's like, well, it's a scale thing. Like, how many Division II athletes are going to really be clogging up the paperwork? And that shut that question down pretty quickly. And it's, I think you'll see the same thing in high schools where really there's only so many LeBron Jameses. 50 tops. And you go from there. Tom, I think we've covered a few things. Now we've got plenty of other stuff we can talk to later on this week, but anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think we're good. I think we've, I've explained I'm an idiot. We talked about Austin Siereveld and talked about NIL. I think that sounds like a complete and full show. So I think we're done. Unless you want to share some experience about how you're an idiot this week.
Well, I was a little bit of an idiot for apologizing to you. I'll say that. I feel like I would like to now take that apology back and strike it from the record. Please, jury, strike that from your memory banks. I did not say it. I do not wish it. And that was not me. That was editing.
Mm-hmm. Misleading edit by me. Sorry. I apologize for that. Do I mean that? Well, we're out of time.
We got to go, folks. So that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in as always, and we will talk to you guys later.